Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And we're coming at you with another virtual episode because it's damn cold and my car won't goddamn start. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but it's the truth. We're doing another virtual episode, so hopefully the quality is good enough for you guys. I hope you like it. I hope you can see that our shelves are warped together here. I think this is the important
Yeah, it is kind of
part.
cool that it kind of works out that way where they like cross over in like weird parallel, like they're slightly askew,
I like
crossing the dimensions.
We're crossing the multiverse. Now, guys, we're doing another Disney Plus show because we've done all the Disney Plus shows as episodes as deep down dives, and I want to try.
Thus far.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we want to kind of keep that up. Anything that's really worthwhile to us from Marvel wise and Disney, we want. I mean, and not Disney, Star Wars specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I could do a whole episode about the world according to Jeff Goldblum. I absolutely could, but we will
Might not make for the best episode.
It's not the best episode. It'll just be us doing terrible Jeff Goldblum
impressions. Yeah.
Do the laugh, just Sean, for everybody.
It's been a bit. It starts off this kind of like a growl, like.
It's fantastic.
I'm out of practice.
I do love that show, but we're going to be talking about Hawkeye today, guys. We're going to be talking about the Christmas Marvel movie Hawkeye show. Basically a movie, though, because the little bit of history on this Hawkeye, the reason why I think this show feels a little bit like you did the step up other than the other Marvel shows a little, is that this was a movie. And then they were like, Jeremy Renner, the Disney Plus shows are doing well. You okay with the Disney Plus show? And he was like, will I still make up millions of dollars? And he was like, they were like, of course it's Disney. We print money. What are you talking about? And it's basically a show now. And I think that's what kind of makes this feel different, because we said in our reviews of WandaVision,
Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki.
They all feel disjointed because they don't know what they want to do as a show, as a complete story. And I think WandaVision's one of the stronger ones because it holds it till the end, where it's like it's doing so well, and then the end just feels all over the place. Not in a totally bad way, but it definitely is different than like the great mood they set earlier. And then
it fumbles the ball and doesn't drop it.
And Falcon and Winter Soldier, I feel, had like, it just like really fumbles the ball at the end. I feel like if we're talking about literally just like not sticking the landing, it's like I had a lot of fun with them revealing Cap's new suit and everything, but like I feel like they were doing so well, and then the end is so just like, what?
Okay.
Okay.
Especially with like what they do with John.
Yeah, you're just like, all right. There's so much. If somebody, I feel like the problem with that story is somebody didn't love it enough. Like that's really, it's like somebody didn't love it.
Imagine a bit of that. And I know there was like some behind the scenes issues because there was like first bout of COVID and that like caused them to like shift schedules, and they had to like trim an entire subplot out.
Exactly. It's like you weren't getting the full product. And then we also talked about What If, and I still think What If is probably one of the strongest, if not the best show, but it does have it has like lower points, than Hawkeye here. I think it keeps it consistent pretty much throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of the only Marvel shows I waited to the end to binge, because I was kind of like, I'm not the biggest Hawkeye fan. I'm not the biggest Jeremy Renner fan. I'm really not. Renner, sorry. Haley though, you put a Haley in anything and I'm like, yes, we're going to watch that. She's fantastic in everything. She literally made the Bumblebee movie and, and really brought that across. It does such a great job on so many other projects. She's literally having, if we're talking about a renaissance, like people having like the Florence Poe renaissance, like we're gonna talk
Florence
about
Pugh,
today.
like Yahya Abdul Mateen, like just a bunch of just great. I wouldn't say up and coming. They've been in the game for a little bit, but now they're
Yeah,
starting to like really blow up.
I feel like Haley's been in it. You know, she's in True Grit. You know, like you're like,
Which
come
is the
on,
better
she's
version of True Grit.
and I feel like she really had a fucking year, you know, like she did Arcane and had the TV plot, the Dickinson Apple TV show, and like you're just like, and put out music. I think I'm not exactly sure. You're like, damn, that's crazy. Like, and then next year she's in this year 2022. Gotta think like that. Is She's going to be Gwen Stacy again in Across the Spider-Verse. So she's really having like, you're just like hit. Like, and she's really like just striding, and you're just like, yeah, let's keep watching this because this is awesome. I really put off, like, I only put off this show just because I was kind of like, I want to binge it. I want to see the whole thing. And I already said the other two reasons, you know, like, is that I'm just like, I was like, as much as I love this story, the other Disney Plus shows did not give me confidence that they were going to do this story.
Yeah.
And then the title came up on the first episode, and I was like, sir.
That was probably my biggest concern going into it. I didn't wait to binge it. I more like half waited to binge it.
Yeah.
Or like I waited like the first 3, then I binged them all, and then I just like waited again until it was over. So it was sort of like a half measure.
A half measure, yeah. And people were, I mean, even Vince, like, guys, we're talking spoilers, obviously. We're going to be talking already, so sorry, guys. Quick review, we kind of already said it. So, guys, pause, come back. We're on Galaxy Geek YouTube now, so pause, come back, and you can we can get deep on Hawkeye now and tell it.
In our defense, like we're kind of late to this one. Like it's already in the new year. This is more of a Christmas thing.
It's a little bit more of a Christmas thing. I did feel a little weird doing it, like going back to a Christmas property so late, but it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, I already did all the Christmas stuff. I guess I could do this right now. Because it's straight up a Christmas story, straight up. But spoilers wise, what I was trying to say is that even Vincent D'Onofrio D'Onofrio. Sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce names, but I'm so sorry. I'm gonna try. He even like leaked that he was in the final episode, so it was kind of like one of those things where you're like, well, okay, no one cares about the spoilers, I guess. Everyone's like, it's a Disney Plus show. Everyone should have seen it. Like they do all the time with Boba Fett. I feel like they're so bad.
It's been 2 days. Here's what happened.
You're like, as much as I love good memes, you're like, sometimes you're like, just wait.
Wait a fucking second.
Wait a goddamn minute. But I mean, that didn't really ruin anything. It just kind of gets it hyped up that he's coming at the end, so it wasn't really a bad thing. But
and throughout the show, you get like little hints,
right?
Just between like they keep mentioning the big guy or the fact that the car sales place is called Fat Man.
Yeah, right.
And I was like,
oh, okay. I was like, that's how we're doing it. I actually really enjoyed kind of knowing he was coming, you know, like as much as I know he's in this, you know, like I kind of was like, would they have the balls to actually go that far, you know, like to actually push it? And I think
because we're post No Way Home, so we're at least in that point where, okay, we are acknowledging the Netflix shit now.
Right.
But it's still just like, okay, but we're still taking baby steps. We probably won't get like Kingpin or something for a while. And then to just get it around the same time and both take place around Christmas too, which is funny.
I think it's funny because like they even kind of said it. They're like, you know, we're gonna have for the Disney Plus shows, basically the grounded shows, you're gonna have the big bad guy of Kingpin in a lot of them, and then you're gonna in the multiverse stuff, of course, you're gonna have from Loki, what's his goddamn name? I forget the actor's name from Loki. Who's
Hiddleston?
No.
Who are you talking about?
The
Character.
guy, the guy, the multiverse guy. I'm forgetting his
Like
guy.
Kang?
Kang, yes. So, thank you, Kang's. It's like it's one of those things where it's like I like that separation, and I hope that because it looks like Kang's actually in movies. So I wonder if we'll actually get like Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin in a fucking movie. I hope so. I hope that's what this means. Like
I
that,
mean, we already put Matt in one, so
right?
it's not
Might as
much of a
well.
stretch.
You're like, let's
But
go.
I like how they justify it. They don't outright say it, but it's been implied, and they pretty much confirmed after the fact that like Kingpin was a part of the blip. He did get snapped away.
Yeah.
So returning 5 years later, he doesn't exactly have like the station or like the power in the city that he used to. So now he's like starting to slowly build things back up, which also works as a good sort of starting point for like, well, if you didn't watch the Netflix stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of that's why I like this is that they kind of justified that the reason why the Netflix people haven't shown up till now is that they all got blipped. Like, like even Matt Murdock, you could kind of imply that Matt Murdock got blipped, like that he's, like you're like, okay, out of the Netflix show into this, like we'll fucking see. But what I was saying is that I binged this so fast because of two reasons. Of the two reasons why I didn't want to watch this at first is I didn't think it was a straight comic book adaptation because of all the Marvel shit that they can't really accomplish a story. But they try their fucking damnedest to try to adapt this.
It's a pretty damn good compromise. I read like half of the first volume again last night, just in anticipating of like recording this. Just because like I have Comixology Unlimited and like the first couple of volumes are free with Unlimited. So I'm like, let me just like read at least half of the first volume just to like refresh myself. And it's one of those things where while the show doesn't capture the grit of that series, which is something we had brought up even before, because this MCU Hawkeye is a very different Hawkeye. He's in a much better place. He's not like as street level as like comic book Hawkeye is. So they wouldn't really make that work. But they still incorporate some of like the more fun elements. They keep the spirit and the fun of that comic book run, if not the grit.
And I like that they kind of add the grit with the Ronin stuff, like by being like, hey, like it's not the Hawkeye, from comics who's just like, I'll put two arrows between the eye of anybody who gives a shit, and then everybody wants to kill me. It's like, they're like, hey, I messed up during the blip, like, and you're like, all right. I like it because it adds some real dimension to the Ronin stuff. I feel like that's one of the major flaws of Hawkeye and the Marvel Universe, MCU in general, is that they don't have much dimension to the man, even though they try their damnedest so many times. They're like, he's got dimensions. Look, he's got family, and his family got blipped, and he got angry. Like they're like, look, dimension, and you're like, and then here they finally are able to like utilize it, like in like a really smart way that I think really adds to this story, and also kind of like gives Jeremy, say it again, is it Renner, one of his absolute best performances I've seen him in, like no question for me. I think that he really is able to give a lot of emotion here and give a like an actual great character like work here that he does. I think it really I think obviously if you're not a fan of Hawkeye, this might make you a fan of Hawkeye. You'll be like, hey, cool, like, and if you are a fan of Hawkeye, you'll be like,
I think if you at the very least, if you don't care about Clint, you'll care about Kate.
Yes, exactly. I think she's obviously great here. I think they like started off by being like, this is Kate's story with the bell tower scene. They're like this is Kate's story. We're not like Clint's here, and Clint's like,
and,
like,
and even before that with the contextualization of like the Battle of New York.
Right. I loved that. I think that's great because it's first off, it gives you This shot again gives you him falling out the window shooting. So they're like,
Hmm.
get to redo that in another way, like, and I kind of love that they're able to like
Yeah,
recreate shots.
it was pretty well done, and it like matches up very well. The big wide shot of like the city while she's like looking through like the hole in her
Yeah,
building. Little green screeny, little green screeny. It's
little
got some
green
like
screen.
weird it's got some like weird depth of field nonsense going on there.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think that this is definitely one of the lowest CGI shows that they had, like out of
Yeah,
all of
it's the
these.
advantage. That's actually like part of the reason I like this show so much, and we'll get into it later, but like as we had mentioned with the other shows that they kind of fumble it a bit, especially by the end. This one is the only one of the shows that feels like it doesn't bite off more than it can chew.
No, absolutely. I think that I think that's what we were kind of saying is like Loki starts off being like it's Doctor Who, and then it's like, hey, Marvel Universe is here, bitch. And
Hmm.
and the same thing happens to WandaVision, where it's like, we're doing some really cool stuff with WandaVision, and then they're like, MCU's here. Even though I do think the emotional through line in WandaVision still fucking works the whole time. And of course, the writing I think was fantastic in there. What if I think it's the Thor episode at the end, and them like not able to do the uh Gamora episode kind of makes that ending a little like
Yeah.
stranger, like you're like and then Loki, it's like I already said that it's a Marvel, so it's like it's one of those things that all the other shows feel like it's not within its own show what's
Hmm.
happening at the end, especially Falcon and Winter Soldier, where you're like, now it's the Marvel Universe, even though we were doing dark character studies on these guys, like, and we were talking about what's the role of Captain America, but then we're just gonna really fucking throw everything at the wall at the last episode,
Yeah.
like you're like, here in Hawkeye, Kingpin's already built in. They already were like building it in, and then for it like feels like it's part of the conflict, like it's not just like out of nowhere, like Loki kind of feels, where
Hmm.
it's just like okay, we're doing the multiverse stuff, but then they're like, hey, big villains come in, which is cool, but you're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and I mean, doing multiverse stuff with Kang does make sense, but it's also one of those things where a Loki show of all things, which feels like really in its own bubble, would lead to such a big
Which,
reveal.
which I know Loki is known for his multiverse. There is a big Loki story that he does multiverse jump, and that's where they find female Loki and stuff like that. But you're like Loki, like it's still like you're like he's the guy we're doing multiverse shit with, which like uh, who knows what, like, because all Loki was doing was setting up multiverse of
Hmm.
madness, and it's funny because No Way Home also kind of is like a huge like multiverse of madness is coming, and it's like it kind of makes you feel like Disney or even Kevin Feige knows that the multiverse of madness is a big swing, like it's important, like they're spending money, and I'm kind of curious what that means with Sam Raimi's like older tendencies. Does that mean
Hmm.
he like starts the X-Men in this, like does this mean there's like Amazing Spider-Man in this one, like what does this all mean, like, but we'll see, because it's like they could really go crazy, but who knows if they will. But
Yeah.
it seems like they could, because they've spent the money, like, and they've done a bunch of lead up, and everyone knows what that movie is going to be, like it's going to be crazy. So we'll see. But but besides the point is, what I'm saying is that everything works within the story. Nothing feels out of place. There's no weird like MCU jump anywhere, like there's just the only thing that like it almost feels out of place at first is Florence Pugh's appearance as
Yelena.
Elena, but then it works so well with the story and that whole emotional ending of him explaining to her what happened is so worth it to the character of
Yeah,
Hawkeye
that and we knew she was coming.
yeah, exactly. You already knew she was coming from Black Widow, which I think is kind of funny. They're like finally being like, "Hey, did you see Black Widow?" They're like, "Did you see Black Widow?"
Well,
Like,
that was the post-credit scene at the end of Black Widow.
right.
It was literally just like, here's your next target. Oh, it's Hawkeye. I'm like, okay, I guess Yelena's gonna show up on Hawkeye then.
Right.
And did you hear I forget what site it was from, but the idea that Marvel Studios is considering developing another Black Widow film with Yelena as the new Black Widow, but also with Kate as the new Hawkeye. So you sort of have like the new Black Widow and Hawkeye.
Yeah, Young Avengers thing going on. I mean, that's obviously coming. I feel like is that they're building to a Young Avengers. Who knows if it's even in the back of this? I am
down for the idea of those two with their own movie, though, especially since they bounce off each other so goddamn well. Like that scene where she breaks into her apartment and they just like talk about macaroni.
Right. The funniest bit to me, though, is that in this back of this book here with the Young Avengers chapter, it's with Eli Bradley, the Patriot, and they fucking kill him in fucking Falcon and Winter Soldier. And you're like, okay, like, we're just going to kill Patriot. Like, no, that's not true. Eli Bradley's the young boy that they see at the end, right? Isn't that
I don't remember.
I don't remember. It's they've already hinted at Patriot being there, but like definitely have not built it up in any way. So it's like he's not going to be
plus it doesn't necessarily mean they would stick to that exact roster anyway.
No, I think obviously the Young Avengers is Yelena, Kate Bishop, Peter, if we get Spider-Man there, you know, like cuz he's young, you know, like might as well have him there. And then we got and I mean, of course you could put it's funny, you could put a bunch of these people, a bunch of the young spin-offs in there. If they were able to do Wanda's kids in the next movie, you could have Wanda's kids as Young Avengers. Like I know like they want to bring they hinted at her trying to bring him back in Multiverse of Madness. So we'll see if that's what they're doing. But that would be something. They're also would they do the somebody from the Eternals too? Do you think would they do that as a Young Avenger? What's his name? Starts with an S. But
I doubt it. Given where that movie goes, I doubt it.
Cool. I will have to watch Eternals this week. It's one of the ones that I was like, hey, it's on Disney Plus. Like, it's time to fucking watch this. I was like, okay. But then I watched G Gundam, and I fucking finished G Gundam, and G Gundam was great. Fucking loved it. It was fucking ridiculous. It was insane. But beside the point. So stop talking about the other MCU stuff. Hawkeye. So what really, I think we were saying what really works for this is that it's a good character study. It feels really connected. Like it doesn't feel like something just came out of nowhere, knocked it out of place, and it does try to adapt this comic like in a lot of ways without feeling like we're just stealing aesthetics from the comic and not doing anything with it, like they did with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I feel like, you know, like there's that whole death of Captain America story that they're basically doing there, and they're not really doing it, and it's like, and it's off-putting at the end, you know, where you're just like, well, they didn't do fucking Death of Captain America, basically, you know, like, and Loki's just kind of like, I don't think they're doing what they did for that multiverse story. I've seen pages of it, and it's not what that show was. And and it's like in WandaVision, they do, at least the start of it is very the WandaVision comic, or what is it? What is the name of the comic? Is it just Vision that they do that in, where they have the house?
A little bit. Vision's the one where like Vision like builds his own family, and they're like pulling a little bit from that.
Yeah, definitely. They were pulling from that. So it's like they they were just like pulling aesthetics for all these other shows, and Hawkeye straight up is like, nope, we're doing the tracksuit army. The tracksuit mob. We're doing, we're doing, yeah, bro. We're doing. The funniest bit to me was Jack.
Duquesne.
Duquesne being there. I was like, we're really doing fucking Jack Duquesne. Like, we're really doing Jack Duquesne.
The
like,
swordsman.
I was like, really? It's like, except it's like, it's fun, you know, like he's such like a great little ad, and you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
The name of that actor is escaping me right now, but I know him from Better Call Saul.
Yes, yeah. He's all over.
I like that he's sort of a red herring. Like, oh, here's the obvious literal mustache twirler, and it's the idea of just like, oh, Kate just doesn't like him because, you know, moving into the family, but he actually turns out to be a nice guy, a little shady, but ultimately not an asshole.
I agree, and I do think it's like, it's funny that they just able to work so many aspects of this in there. They're able to do the down and dirty Hawkeye without like doing it, you know, because they're like, Kate Bishop's cards are canceled. They're like, he's living basically in New York with no base or anything like that, trying to do this off-grid mission, and then they're able to like sort of do this down the luck Hawkeye, you know, like not really.
Yeah, it's
like,
not
almost
as dark because this takes place like during Christmas, whereas the Hawkeye book was like in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
So like that's like in the beginning of the first issue, it's just like, yes, summer in New York, the smell of trash everywhere. And so they keep it a little more lighthearted in that respect. And as we've said, like MCU Hawkeye has sort of a different thing going on. Like he's well off, he has a family, so you can't exactly do I'm a single man living in an apartment. I get my ass kicked all the time. I live in New York. This is what I'm doing when I'm not an Avenger.
Yeah.
So instead they sort of add elements. One, they make the circumstances work as to why he would be mostly on his own with also Kate to like keep his family safe.
Yeah.
And then they give elements that wouldn't work for this version of Hawkeye to Kate, basically.
Yeah.
Like his cool ass apartment, they basically give to Kate in like the first episode. The fact that it's Kate who saves Lucky instead of Clint.
Right. I do love the addition of Pizza Dog in this. I was like, yes. I mean, they weren't able to do the losing the eye thing because I don't think Disney Plus show would. They were
Cowards.
like, this is a Disney show. We don't unless we're doing.
The last thing people want to see is a dog having surgery performed on him for a Christmas themed Marvel show.
And I do think this is actually like it's a pretty good, like, we have a whole Christmas episode of what makes a Christmas episode. Go check it out. But you can, but like, this really does qualify as like a Christmas show / movie, whatever you want to call it. It's like, it's got Christmas music in every episode. It's around Christmas theme. The plot moves forward because it's Christmas. You're like, hey, it hits all our tenets of this is a Christmas movie. You know, now you can watch Hawkeye every year.
It feels more Christmassy than Iron Man 3 did because that also took place during Christmas.
Right? Oh, because, I mean, I think the thing we haven't brought up that I think is so important to the show is finally some good fucking action set pieces. Like, holy fucking shit, Disney Plus. How fucking hard was it to get some good fucking action set pieces? And we finally got
because like there's no real action until the end of WandaVision, and even then it just kind of feels like standard Marvel fare.
And What If was the best one with the end fight with Ultron.
Yeah,
but that's just
but
like
that had
in a
the
destroyed
advantage,
city, you know,
and that had the advantage of being animated.
Right, so they could do kind of whatever.
And like Falcon and Winter Soldier like starts off pretty well, like the flying sequence with like Falcon chasing the helicopters is pretty sweet. But then after that, it starts to kind of feel like, oh, this is starting to feel like kind of TV budget level fights.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't big. This isn't big budget, and I think that's what really flies here is that like, Fraction was really trying to do like a straight up action movie, and at times trying to do like the French fucking Connection with Hawkeye, you know, like you definitely get those vibes with the chase scene is very like we're doing like you know, the French Connection a little bit, but like I do think that the first off, the there's several really great action pieces, actually. Like the wine cellar fight was actually really fucking cool in the first scene, with her like kicking bottles up into people's faces and then hitting them with it. Like, you're like, that's dope as shit. And then of course, what I'm really talking about is them actually like really nailing the fucking car chase scene from this book. It's
reading that
set
again,
pieces in this. And
reading that again, it's pretty beat for beat. It even has like the same gags, or like certain arrows don't work properly. And Kate's like, "What is this even? What is this arrow's purpose?"
Yeah. Like, what's this do? Why is it labeled? Like, she's pissed about it not being labeled, like, and stuff. It's like, I do think it's kind of funny though that they like in the book they're like
they actually grab the Dodge Challenger.
They grab the Dodge Challenger, which is kind of a huge nod to like from like, because I know Fraction was a supervising producer. It seems like a huge like nod from the producers being like, we know he's not gonna take the Challenger, but like, don't worry, like, we know it's there, you know, like, we're like, hey, it's here. And I but I do think it's funny that they did not go with the Mini Coupes for the Tracksuit Mafia. They were like, no, we're gonna do the vans, the moving vans, the two bros moving van. Like,
what was it? It's a Trust a Bro moving company. Trust a Bro. Oh man. Okay, so they nailed the Tracksuit Mafia in this. They're so fucking funny.
So fucking funny. I think they're a huge add to this, that like they're able to bring in like the funny Marvel like quippiness without it feeling like, why is this coming from my very serious character, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, yes.
But it's Kate Bishop.
I loved them talking about the tickets and everything. They're like, I loved her being like, well, at least you don't have to go see Imagine Dragons. And he's like, I love Imagine Dragons. For me, I was like, I get you, Kate. Fucking Imagine Dragons. You're like, talk about music that's not music. Sorry, we don't talk about music that often.
Don't be a snob.
But yeah, no, sorry, no, I'm not. Sorry, yeah, you're right. I'm not being a snob. It's
you want to really get Frank going, like bring up what counts and what doesn't count as metal, and he gets really snobby.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I do. I'm just saying, most people don't know what they're fucking doing. Beside the point, is that I love the chase scene. I think they fucking nailed that. And then the added, like, straight from their dome, the fucking Christmas tree falling into the giant Christmas tree in
I forget what the square is called.
I forget the square, but falls into the ice rink, which is, they're both iconic place. You know, it's an iconic thing. And it's so cool to have that set piece there. And then also for it to be dope as hell. That was awesome. That was great.
They just kind of cut loose. This felt so Marvel comic-y in the fact that, like, oh, here's all these crazy trick arrows and stuff that we've never seen Hawkeye actually use properly for the most part in the movies. At the most, he's like, here's a regular arrow, here's an explosive arrow,
here's a foam arrow,
here's a weird hack USB arrow from the first Avengers. But here we're like, oh, here's putty, here's net, here's the Pym particles one that expands, which is pretty sweet.
God, that was pretty great. I love, like, that was like the bit that I was like, that's the bringing in the rest of the Marvel universe that I dig, you know, like, is that like those little like Hank gave this to me, you know, like,
that's all you need too. All you have to see like the Pym logo on the end on the arrowhead, and you're like, okay, I know where this is going. Don't need to explain any further.
I love them being like, so what do we do now? I don't know. We should ask Hank, and then the bird comes in and just takes them away, and they're like, bro. I was losing it over that. I thought that was so good. That's the thing, is I feel like Hawkeye is kind of, and it sounds stupid, but it's like low key the best Disney Plus show, just because, for consistency's sake, for good action scenes,
as far as Marvel is concerned,
as far as Marvel scene, exactly. I think, of course, Mandalorian's fucking killing it. Of course, that's the real like crown on, and Boba Fett's doing well, but like Mandalorian's the fucking crown on the Disney Plus.
And don't worry, we'll talk about Book of Boba Fett when it's finished.
Yeah, we will, absolutely. Don't worry. I'm one episode behind right now, but
yeah, it's just like it's fun, it's breezy, it's street level, kind of like the Netflix shows, but it's not overly gritty because different circumstances. It also has like the perfect.
That the like the only thing that kind of sucks is that Kingpin can't be like, I don't know. He couldn't smash somebody's head in with a fucking car door.
In a car door.
And they definitely were implying he was gonna do it to some bitches, you know?
Yeah. I think a cool compromise with that, though, is that they definitely make D'Onofrio Kingpin a little more comic book like durable.
Yeah.
Like he's just fucking eating arrows like to the chest. They're like, okay, he's like comic book Kingpin strong now. All right.
Which I liked. I liked that like that we're finally getting this like, oh, this is Kingpin, you know, like this isn't, you know, like this isn't just some guy who's a mob boss. This is like, no, something's wrong with this guy. Like something's fucked up about Kingpin, and there's a reason.
I'll tell you what, though,
the head.
I'll tell you what, though, Daredevil got canceled a few years ago, and it feels like Vincent D'Onofrio never left. He just kind of steps right in.
And it's such like a joyous, like, thank God you're back, dude. You know, like,
yeah.
You're
and I'm glad
you're
that,
one of the
like,
best things with the Netflix show. Daredevil and him are the best things from those shows.
Aside from like shifting his circumstances, like him having to like sort of build up his empire again. Yeah. I'm glad just because he's like MCU proper now, as opposed to like the Netflix shows being in kind of their own little weird Marvel TV bubble. They didn't really alter his characterization all that much. Like it's still like, oh, I'm still playing my Kingpin.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to soften him just for you guys. You might not see some of the grosser shit I've done to people,
violence,
but I'm still acting like my Kingpin.
I do. The only thing that I feel like is a little, it's a little too much like Marvel TV is the inclusion, like not the inclusion of Echo, because I think Echo works within the story. She's a great like sub boss, you know, like she's and obviously they're building her up to have her own show because they're gonna be an Echo show. But it's one of those things that like the standoff at the end with her shooting Kingpin, you're not gonna take out Kingpin that you just introduced this episode, and you're not gonna kill Echo because you have a fucking show with her. So what's the dramatic point of that? And that,
you also conveniently like
that,
and plus you also conveniently panned up during the shot.
Yeah, like
to not see the bullet connect. So you're like, yeah.
I do wonder if that's how they're gonna start the Echo show. Is Kingpin like either like catching a fucking bullet because he can or something like that, or him like holding her hand up to the sky and then like there's a whole fight scene or something like that before she leaves. Because like it seems like that's the great place to start that show, or at least show it at some point, you know?
Yeah, that was one of the weirder announcements for a spinoff I remember from Disney Plus Day. It was like that and the Agatha show. And having seen Hawkeye, I'm like, I see it a little more, but I'm still also just like, I'm not sure Maya really needs her own show.
And they're definitely, and that's what I meant by she's definitely might be one of the Young Avengers. Is that she? I think because is that like she. Is she's gonna get her own show? They're kind of building her up to do her own thing, and it's kind of one of those things where this is where Marvel falls apart in my eyes most of the time, you know. And most comics, I feel like a lot of comics, and it happens to DC, it happens to Godzilla, it happens to Power Rangers. It was when you spin off too much. It happens to fucking Star Trek. Is when you spin off too much, like, and the wrong things, you know, like I see where Disney was thinking with the Agatha show, where they were like, she was so popular and she's so great, she's already under contract, so Agatha show. The problem is, what do you do for an Agatha show? What the fuck is that?
Agatha only functions as well as she does in the context of WandaVision because she's an antagonistic force.
Yeah,
The
what are you
moment you
doing?
turn that person into a protagonist, it doesn't really work the same because they have no one to bounce off of and you don't care. And plus, as far as Agatha as a function in the comics, she's really just there to be like a villain slash antihero slash dark mentor to Wanda. So
Yeah.
this isn't really someone we give their own solo. Even in the comics, you wouldn't really give Agatha her own solo book,
No.
so I give her her own show.
No. And it's kind of one of those things where you're like, I know she's popular, but it's like it's that issue of like launching something without fully thinking through if this is like going to be
Yeah,
worthwhile story.
those types of spin-offs you can sort of like you can mentally picture like the boardroom meeting about it.
Yeah,
Where you're just
exactly.
like, well, that was really popular, so let's give her a show. The kids loved
And,
Agatha.
and
The
I and
kids
I
loved
feel like
Agatha. Agatha all along didn't it fucking get nominated for an Emmy?
and I kind of feel that way with yeah, exactly. That's their thought process. That they're like Agatha All Along won us a fucking Emmy and is probably going to go up for an Oscar for best song, original song. So we'll see. No, they can't because it's not a movie. So yeah, that's going to be the fucking weird part of the Oscars is that like if it came to streaming, does it still count? Do you guys did you just take anything like which is okay? Like as long as they campaign and get
Yeah,
voted in, I guess.
I'm not sure because like the past Emmys were a fucking shit show.
Yeah, they're like, we'll take anything, and you're like, what?
What counts? We're gonna nominate Hamilton for a bunch of things, even though it's not a TV show, it's not a movie, it's a filmed play from 2014,
Yeah, you're like, wait.
and plays are
I love
Tonys,
Hamilton,
and
but it was
Hamilton
weird.
already had nominations and wins for Tonys
No,
years ago. It
No,
doesn't
the real
count.
reason is, of course, to get the EGOT for
Yeah.
Lin-Manuel. Give him the EGOT. That's what everyone wants. I want it to. Give it to him. I saw Encanto. Give it to him. By the way, we might do an episode on soon, but Encanto's fucking great. Watch it. It's one of my first nines, 2022. It's fantastic. But beside the point, Hawkeye. But Echo, it just feels like you can see the boardroom too. They're like, oh, we have this anti-hero, which has worked well for our spin-off shows, who's deaf, so we're hitting like a great demographic there. We're trying to like we're Disney, so we look like good guys, by
ticking
being
the
like,
box so
they're like,
people don't realize
hey.
how shady we are all the time.
Exactly. And it's like one of those things where it just I've never read an Echo comic, so I can't fucking that's the problem with us reviewing these Marvel shows sometimes is we're big fans of certain Marvel properties, but we're not like the Marvel
We've established
fucking
in the
dudes.
past that like we're more DC heads, so we know more about like that universe and those proceedings.
I guess we're it's like if we're Marvel fans, we're Marvel fans of the MCU or in the movies more than we are the comics in general, I guess, because it's like
I would say for a bit, but I would also say like we've read a lot more than the average Joe.
Oh, guys,
in the fact that we've actually
if you're even questioning how many fucking Marvel books we've read over the 2 years,
just the idea that we actually just bother reading the comics instead of just sticking with the movies and pretending we know stuff by looking up Wikipedia summaries.
Yes, exactly. We actually have firsthand experience. But especially I feel here with Hawkeye, and I think one of the best send-offs that I think is the big love letter in this show is of course that that they do the they do the style for the covers in the
as the opening credits.
It's beautiful. It makes me happy every time. I was like that's gorgeous. I love it. Let's keep this up. I was like, this is perfect, perfect way to cover, to be like, yes, we're doing this comic without being like
it has like a resonance and respect for like the source material. It kind of reminds me of like the Alex Ross opening credits for the Raimi Spider-Man films.
Right.
Where you're just like, yeah, you fucking bring in Alex Ross for that. Come on.
It's one of those things that I think the other reason why I like this Hawkeye show, and I've said it already, is that it's a comic book adaptation, and MCU often just feels like they're not doing a comic book adaptation, like that they're like stealing the name or they're like using the aesthetics and they sort of do the comic, and I'm not saying they have to do the comic. I'm not saying I watched Wheel of Time this week. this past week, past 2 weeks actually, and
I've heard
I
mixed things about
I've
that.
heard mixed things about it, and I feel mixed feelings about it, but I enjoyed it even though it did not follow the book to an exact letter and change some things. I did enjoy it, and I think the action's fun. I think there's the end episode shows its TV budget a little almost too much, but it spent its money in other ways, and it came out great. And of course, what's her name who's playing
Rosamund Pike.
Rosamund Pike is amazing, of course. It's one of the reasons why you're there, is you're like, Rosamund Pike, you're fucking killing it. And of course, it's a high fantasy show. How many fucking high fantasy shows do we have that are actually like good books, like good books that we're putting on fucking we got like Witcher, and we got this, it's not,
I
it's not fucking happening that often.
But I do get what you mean. At this point, the MCU it's not even so much. I mean, yeah, it's an adaptation of Marvel Comics, but at the same time, it's also kind of its own universe in general.
I think
in the same way that like
justify it as like it's an alternate universe.
Yeah, in the same way that like and in the same place of like 616 and Ultimate, MCU is also sort of in its own bubble.
Yeah, and like that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It means it's telling stories differently, and we always advocate for that here, is telling stories in the best way possible that works for the medium. But it's also like it's one of those things that like I finally love. It's like that they actually are doing a comic, like here it feels like we're finally doing a fucking comic, like it's like in a world where Guardians of the Galaxy it's like, and I love Guardians of the Galaxy, guys, don't fucking hate me, but they steal from every story possible, that to do Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah, like, Guardians is a very loose adaptation to begin with.
Exactly, and I think it happens for a lot of these properties, especially Captain Marvel at the moment. Is that they didn't, is that they were like, we're gonna not do a comic, we're gonna do just whatever works for our universe, and you're like, and we're gonna steal the aesthetics from everything and the names, and you're like, okay,
yeah,
all right,
and just like sort of pass it off as our own, but not actually just do the work.
Exactly, and sometimes they hit big. I think like the completely redoing of the Black Widow story actually kind of works for the MCU. I think that actually plays out well. Like it's like they changed it from the comics, but it actually works.
Yeah, same thing with like the way they handled the Winter Soldier storyline and Civil War.
Yeah,
very different, but
very different.
They work in the context of like this version.
Exactly, and I think that's where it, even at the best of this MCU, they're not adapting like straight comic,
Yeah, like Infinity War is not really an adaptation of Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah,
like it has like bits and pieces of Infinity Gauntlet, but it's very much its own story.
Exactly, and I think it's one of those things that we have to kind of be like, well, when are we, like, I know DCU sitting over there going, we just adapted all of Aquaman Volume 1, bitch. And you're like,
Volume 1.
Volumes 1 through 6.
More like this entire omnibus that I have right here. Just like the Jeff Johns run in a single movie.
And I guess we're coming across as very book readers here, as being like, like, but that's not what I'm saying, is that we don't get enough like straight adaptions from the Marvel universe, like,
and we already said that it works for the most part in the context of the MCU. And to be honest, it is also kind of fun because just because you're a comic book reader doesn't mean you're going to know what's going to happen in the proceedings, which is also kind of nice.
Yeah, exactly. You're not just getting the same thing. Exactly. The only thing that I will say was a fucking eyesore, and I don't know if we needed to make the joke, was the Rogers musical. What was that, Deshaun? Tell me, what was that?
I get it. And I think it works because it's just so fucking, it's just so ridiculous, and the fact that you keep it mostly on Clint's POV and he's like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, right. It kind of reminds me of that like Batman musical scene in Batman Beyond, where like Terry's just like, this is fun, and Bruce is just like, kill me right now.
It's definitely that. it's like I kind of dig it for like him connecting with his kids and gives him a reason to be in New York, is that like, oh, we're gonna go see the musical that's a hit musical that dad is technically in, you know, like, so I dig the use of it, but it's one of those things where you're like, what the fuck was that? And then for them to play the whole scene at the end of the last episode, I was like, I
That was
don't know.
kind of funny.
It was funny, but I was just like, what? I love that you finally get to hear what they say about Hawkeye. That was the part that made me laugh, is that you get like that they like finally say the line about him, but like during the scene in the episode, he like is PTSDing about it, you know, like he's freaking out, he's triggered by
I'm glad
like, hey.
like good segue, because I did want to bring up that stuff as far as Clint is concerned.
Yeah.
I love that they delve into that, and I love that they like give him the hearing aid and stuff.
Yes.
And the fact that he doesn't actually know when he would have like lost his hearing is just like, oh, it could have been any number of these situations.
I did love that montage. I thought that was actually like really great. He's like, it could have been, and then like it's just like boom, 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 and him being like, and like flying off of things and getting blown away, and you're like, oh, yeah, could have been any of those.
It plays to like, it's a good way of establishing just like, yeah, amongst that roster, he's the most human.
You know what though? You bring up a fantastic point with the Iron Man 3 connection, with it being another Christmas story. This is just a better Iron Man 3. Is this not? Is that we deal with his trauma of being an Avenger, and it's like down on your luck. Instead, you know, Iron Man loses the suit in Iron Man 3. So this, and there's so much of this that is just kind of Iron Man 3 done so much better. Like,
except it's like not clumsy, and it doesn't make the character act stupid in order to progress the plot, and there's no stupid villain switcheroo at the end.
And it doesn't feel like so. And of course, Iron Man 3 is the worst of the worst with stealing from comics and not actually doing any of it with its extremist plot line, basically just being like shoehorn the fuck in there.
It was also it felt kind of redundant in Iron Man 3 to do like the PTSD, like him having panic attacks and stuff like that, only because we just gave him like the fear of death in Iron Man 2 because he was dying of Palladium poisoning. So going from that to just like a little bit of PTSD in Iron Man 3 almost seems like a step backwards.
Yeah, it's just
like we've already done something similar and something a little more dire.
Yeah, it's all that fucking movie's all over the place. If you didn't need to be reminded of that.
the best Iron Man sequels are the Avengers movies, not the actual sequels.
Exactly. It's not like Captain America where you're like he's got the good sequels, you know, like, you're like, there we go. But it's like, it's really funny. I think it's funny that you made that connection for me in my head, is that like, this is just a better version of what they were trying to accomplish in Iron Man 3.
And it also genuinely feels a lot more Christmassy, which in Iron Man 3's defense, that definitely starts because it takes place in California and it never snows over there. So it's really weird to sell me on like a Christmassy feel when it's in areas that don't actually get snow. I'm like, what is this? These pretenders. This isn't Christmas. Then again, I say that, and thanks to climate change, we haven't had a white Christmas in how long?
Yeah, right. You're like,
it's always in January where we start to get the heavy snow now.
Right. The person I don't think we've brought up as doing a great job in this show, and of course she's the big, like, for me, the big tell in the show. She was the big, like, of course I know she's really the bad guy, is Vera Farmiga as Eleanor Bishop. Like, I know from the comics that Eleanor is a bad guy, but like one of those things that it was like, well, it's Vera. She's always playing like like I have something sinister underneath.
Constantly typecast.
Yeah, very, very typecast. But of course, I think she's fantastic. Anything she's in, I think she's great. I think she really brings it. She brings a lot of believability. She really sells the stuff that's like always kind of bonkers, you know, like of course in The Conjuring she's always really bringing across this like ghost stuff, and you're like, oh, you almost made me believe it, you know, like you're like, oh, good, you know, good work, you know, like
Always playing sketchy moms.
sketchy moms. I guess
Sketchy
that's
moms, because like Godzilla King of the
yeah.
Monsters and this and Bates Motel. So you're like, huh.
Huh. I think she's great though. I think it's one of those things where I do have a bias because she was in Godzilla King of the Monsters, my favorite Godzilla movie. But you're like, you know, she's great in everything.
She's definitely good at it, but I look at it the same way I look at like them always casting Giancarlo Esposito as a villain ever since Breaking
Yes.
Bad.
Yes.
You're just like, I get it. He's like, he does it like no other person, but it's at the same time, this dude has range. Can we not put him in a box?
I mean, it's the same thing as Christoph Waltz and Javier Bardem. They've been completely, other than of course Django Unchained.
Yeah, that's why I
like,
feel
that's
like
the
what
only
works
one where
about
Christoph Waltz
Django
gets
is that
to do other
Tarantino
things.
himself, after building him up, immediately subverted that with making him a nicer person.
Right. I thought that was great. I'm like, that's such a nice, like, such a great, like, thing to do Tarantino wise. You're like, hey, I'll play with even the audience expectations here. You know, like, you're like, I already set him up as this great villain. Let me make him the best buddy to Django. Like, you're like, hell yeah. But beside the point, but I enjoy this show. I think that the action's great. The acting's actually great. Like I don't think any of the MCU's shows don't bring the acting. Other than Falcon and Winter Soldier was a little weak at points. But like Loki even has great acting. You know, like everybody really brings it in these Disney Plus shows. But I think that this is like. This whole show is a kind of a step above.
Yeah, and it doesn't overstay its welcome either, which is something I've also thought about, because looking back on the Netflix shows, most of those didn't really need to be a full 13. They could have just
No.
been 10 and it would have been fine. So the
Right.
fact that like the Disney Plus shows, ever since WandaVision's the only one that was like 9. The rest have been like 6, 6, 6 consistently.
Right.
And I kind of love that.
I love it. I also love the release day of Wednesday. Is that weird? But I love my middle of the week, like, I got Boba Fett. You know, I got Hawkeye.
No, because it actually makes the middle of your week exciting.
Right?
As
You're
opposed to like
this.
the beginning of the week sucks because, you know, most people are back to work, and then like, oh, the weekend. But it's like it kind of helps tide you over.
Tide you over. You're like, I got this. I got something good in the middle of the week. It's nice. I think it's actually like a really good idea, especially because you're not like competing with live TV bullshit or sports on a Wednesday night either. You know, it's just like Disney Plus's night. You know, like they get to take it. And guys, I don't know how much more we can say about it. Is there anything else you want to fucking say about Hawkeye?
No, I don't think so. I hope that Black Widow, like Yelena and Kate Bishop Hawkeye thing is true. That would be a nice. That's really the only way you could do a sequel, unless you wanted to go further back, which would be weird. So I hope
we're
that
just
happens.
Doing Kid Assassins, and you're like, was this the move? And they're like, yes, Kid Assassins. But no, I
hope more coming up are like this. What is the next show?
Marvel wise?
Yeah.
I don't. That's actually a great point. I don't know.
Because I know we have like Secret Invasion coming. We have Armor Wars coming.
Moon Knight. Is it Moon Knight that's coming?
Well, we did. That might be, because we're actually seeing footage of that now.
Yeah,
so
Monday we're supposed to get tomorrow we're supposed to get new Moon Knight stuff.
So I guess that might be the next one. Good luck. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You're like, what? So let me see, because we had the list for last episode. Let me make sure. She-Hulk. Yes, that's it. I think She-Hulk's supposed to be winter or spring of this year. So, and then we're supposedly supposed to get the Miss Marvel show this year. The problem is this is the last show with with a serious date on it for this year.
Yeah, because a bunch of stuff a bunch of their projects got pushed back.
So, and I don't think they're gonna have like a big day where they show off all these dates. They're just gonna be like, it's coming, you know, like they're like, it's coming now.
I'm actually fine with that, because Like the fatigue is starting to settle in about like, okay, this show just wrapped up. You're gonna get a new one in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I do believe the animated shows are coming this year because we have the I Am Groot animated show that's probably already done, and they're just sitting on it being like, we'll finish this up and we'll release it whenever we feel like it. But then they absolutely are doing that Spider-Man freshman year show, so we'll see how much more of that when that's coming. They haven't even said if that's coming in 2022, but I kind of don't doubt it. But then you also have the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which I think they started filming recently, and it should be we'll definitely hopefully get it by this winter, so that'll be cool. That'll be cool something. But it's funny because we don't have for Marvel, for Disney Plus, it's just Moon Knight and She-Hulk that are like live action, basically, like that are coming. You're like, okay,
that's fine by me. I don't need something every month.
Movie wise, we have of course, Multiverse of Madness in May. I think that's the big next upcoming swing, and then Thor in September. But yeah, they don't even have dates on any of the other shows. It's kind of wild. That's fucking crazy. For them, I feel like, but I mean, there's a pandemic going, pandemic surge going on. I don't fucking blame them for being like, never mind, but hopefully that means they'll be able to work on What If more season 2, and we'll get more of that sooner than later, and maybe it'll be more consistent good the whole time. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. Sorry for that meandering end here of us trying to figure out when the next thing is
next
for that. But basically,
where's more content?
Where's the more content? But Boba Fett is going to be our next Disney Plus thing we'll do. So if you're looking for the next show you're going to watch, jump in with Boba Fett with us. We'll be doing that as another episode. We also are going to do an episode on what did you make me watch this week? We watched Matrix. We're gonna do a Matrix episode sooner than later because I got things to say about this.
There's stuff to talk about.
There's stuff to talk about, and then guys, I think we're gonna. We want your suggestions, please. We're on the Galaxy of Geek YouTube page now, guys. We moved over so we can do other things. We want your suggestions down below. We've gotten some great suggestions. I know we kind of want to do a Batgirl analysis of the fucking costume, but we'll see. We'll see. I kind of want to wait for
yell
a trailer
at people and
to do
tell them
stuff.
why they're wrong.
Yes. But we want to do more on this channel, so please, guys, put suggestions down below for content you want us to review, and also for other things. We're going to do some reaction videos. We're going to do some other things on this channel. And then we have other shows coming to this channel, not with just us. This is Galaxy of Geek. Some more things are coming. I know that the other owner of Galaxy of Geek, Tristan, is working on Tristan Talks Trek. So that's coming down the pipeline. So this channel's going to be a lot of things, but I think it'll be all good content that geeks like you will love.
Yeah, we just want to diversify a bit.
Yeah, exactly. The same as our website is being as very varied for geeks content as possible. So guys, check out galaxygeek.com. Subscribe to this channel. Make the fucking algorithm work. Comment, like, do whatever. Make sure that this gets out. Tell your bros that we're on a new channel.
Tell your bros.
Tell your bros. And guys, make sure that you also check out our personal social medias, Twitter and Instagram. Deshaun is
Modcryka.
And I'm Yep Frank on there, and Yep Gundam if you're into fucking Gundam. And I've got a whole new page. Basically, guys, thank you for all your support as we do these episodes, and hopefully we'll be in person together for the next episodes, and if not, we'll be on this virtual, and hopefully it'll be all good for you guys.
Yeah, either way, you'll hear from us. We're
coming. All right, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week.
See you next time.